All right, hello everybody. It's Coach Scythe, your coach of the Atlanta Braveberries, bringing to you another draft analysis. This is draft analysis for the League of Extraordinary Trainers, a Wi-Fi league. Yes, you heard correctly, a Wi-Fi league that I just recently joined. And I had the honor of being in their Rising Stars Single Strike division. So, really looking forward to this. But I did want to say a couple things before I get started. DCC Week 10 will get to you guys very soon. I plan to do that very soon. As for Owl Fight Club, I am no longer going to be filming that just because simply I've lost motivation. Or I did lose motivation. I got it back, thankfully. But it's already, already the end of the season. So I don't see a point to recording anymore when I don't even have everything filmed already. Because I love doing live commentary. Unfortunately, you're not going to get that for DTC Week 10 because I lost the file for that. Even though I know for a fact I was recording, which it sucks. It really is upsetting, but it is what it is. Okay, and so that's basically it. That's all I really wanted to say. So, League of Extraordinary Trainers draft analysis. So the tiering system was kind of weird. It's kind of weird. So there was an S and S plus tier, an A and A plus tier, a B and B plus tier, a C and C plus tier, a D and E and F tier, and you had to have an A, B, C, D, E, and F tier. S and everything else was like for the last 5 mons, because you had to have a team of 11 mons. For the last 5, you could do basically whatever you wanted with whatever tier, but you could only have 2 F tier mons, because F tier mons are NFE mons that don't have a tier, that are never used, and then they're just like in their own NFE tier. But this does not include mons like Reboot and Do Blade, because those are like D tier material and things like that. But these mons, are not. They're below E tier, which was the lowest thing on the dock. It wasn't even on the dock. They had the little paste, like a little paste bin with all the F tier mons, and that was it for the F tier mons. And then S tier was free, but it did cost like a lot of points, and you only had 1,020 to spend. And the A plus tiers and B plus tiers and C plus tiers did count towards your A and B tier. You could have one of the plus tiers and have that requires your be required. Like it could count as your requirement. I feel like I did bad job at explaining that, but it's okay because that's not what you guys came to talk about. You guys came to talk about the mons that I drafted. So let's just get into it. Round 1, 10th pick overall is what I had. I had the 10th pick overall of the draft, and everybody was sort of focused on the higher tier mons like A plus, S, and S plus tier. So I was actually able to sneak Necrozma on my side. Necrozma is a Pokemon I've been wanting to use for the longest time. It's a really good Stealth Rock setter. It can be both on the offensive and the defensive, depending on what I'm feeling and depending on my matchup. I think it could be a pretty reliable screen setter, setting up Light Screen and Reflect, with Light Clay obviously is the item I'd be running on that set. With Photon Geyser, maybe Stealth Rocks. It's a Trick Room setter, and my mons are a bit on the slower side, so Trick Room could be something I see myself bringing fairly often. Well, not fairly often, but here and there. It really just depends. It gets access to Dragon Dance now. Dragon Dance is a really big thing that I wanted to sort of talk about. Dragon Dance, obviously boosting attack and speed by 1. Amazing move, and I'm really glad Necrozma gets it. So if I'm really feeling it, I can set up. It has the attacking stat to be in a physical attacker, and whatever stat's higher, Photon Geyser is going to hit buttons with that stat. So I can run Photon Geyser, Dragon Dance, and then assortment of moves depending on my matchup. Maybe Stealth Rocks, maybe Screens. It really depends. And I can honestly just click buttons after setting up. So that's something I can really see myself doing. Really cool mon. Really glad I got it. It gets really good coverage, in my opinion. Gets things like, well, not really good coverage, but it gets things like Brick Break. And it can hit Ghost types with Dark Pulse. Obviously, it's not something I want to keep in on Ghost types, but if I can get a prediction of a Ghost type, I can click Dark Pulse. Its ability Prism Armor is really good, decreasing the amount that super effective hits are going to do to me. So I'm really glad that I was actually able to pick that up. I could also see myself honestly running a calm mindset. I think that's something that's kind of popular with Necrozma. Don't know for sure because its special defense isn't as great. Has base 89 special defense, and attack and defense and special attack are all above 100. HP is at 97, so it's still really good, but special defense is kind of lacking there. So a calm mindset is something I can run, and from there, I'm just a bulky Necrozma that clicks buttons. And you can't really do much about it because it gets pretty good moves. Like Heat Wave, it gets Heat Wave, it gets obviously Photon Geyser, and has a pretty good assortment of moves to be on the offensive, like I was talking about. Gets access to knockoff, which is really good for me. If I feel like knockoff is always just never a bad bring because nothing wants to really take a knockoff and lose their item, especially if it's like a bulky mon that requires something like leftover slash black sludge in order to be a bit bulkier, like wheezing and maybe some other stuff. So that's basically it with Necrozma. I think Autonomize is something that's pretty decent with it because its speed stats are also not the best. I think Autonomize is something that I could see myself bringing just to like maybe set up and boost my speed. But then again, if that's the case, Dragon Dance is also still an option, and honestly, in my opinion, could be a better one, really depending um, on the matchup. So I could see myself bringing both, really. So moving on, we have Rotom Wash. Well, I'm very fond of the Rotom forms. I really am. Um, I love the Rotom's forms to death. I love how they can be on uh, the both offensive and defensive. I was gonna say physical and special, but that's not true. They can both be on the offensive and defensive. It gets defog, um, which is really good. So it doesn't require defog, but it can be hazard removal. It also counts as my B tier, and it counts towards my Fire Water Grass core. Um, and it can be a pretty reliable screen setter, in my opinion. It can be a pretty reliable screen setter. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. But it can be a pretty reliable status user, I guess is what you would call it. Gets access to things like Thunderwave and Will-O-Wisp. And this is also a pretty bulky mon. I think it definitely counts as a bulky water type. Life Orb sets are pretty, not, I wouldn't say pretty common, but definitely something I like running personally. Obviously, it's not something I'm going to be bringing all the time, but it's something that I'm personally fond of. But it could be good for some matches, could be good for uh, uh couldn't be good for others. It really all depends because sometimes I may need a bulky mon that just clears hazards and things like that. It's resistant to both. Well, it's not getting touched by spikes and T spikes, but it's resistant to stealth rocks, which is really good. So it's not something I have to run boots on. Um, and it's move Hydro Pump. It's water type move. Really great move. If I can land it, Hydro Pump it misses 20% of the time. It's 80% accurate, obviously, and I think for me personally, I've never had a problem missing Hydro Pump. I've only had a problem because I've used Rotom Wash before. I think only like a couple of times I've had a problem missing Hydro Pump. Gets access to the new move. I don't know if it's new, but Hex. It gets access to Hex. I'm only saying that it's new because I've never seen it be used before, in any sort of thing. So I wouldn't know for sure. But it gets access to Hex. So like I was saying, with status, it can be a pretty good status user, and then I can just click Hex. So I can run a light screen set with some sort of hazards like Will-O-Wisp, preferably Will-O-Wisp personally, because it puts the opposing mons on a timer and things like that. And I can click Hex, and it's a done deal from there personally, in my opinion. I think it'd be a done deal from there. But like I said, defog, really good removal, pretty reliable in my opinion. Unlike Rotom Heat, it doesn't have to run boots, like I said. But other than that, I think that is it from Rotom Wash. It's pretty self-explanatory. Choice Scarf sets are pretty common. Life Orb sets aren't as common, but they're usable. Light Clay sets, pretty common in my opinion. I've seen those be used a couple times, and I think those are something that I'll be definitely using throughout the course of this season. And yeah, I'm really excited by it. So next up, we picked up Darmanitan. Darmanitan counts as my fire type for my Fire Water Grass core, and you know, Darmanitan, really good choice user, really good. Obviously the basic sets are like Super Power, Flare Blitz, Earthquake, possibly Rock Slide with some other type move. But I think Life Orb sets are also pretty useful with this. You know, Life Orb, Bulk Up, Flare Blitz, Body Press maybe, and it could also maybe run a status with Toxic, which would be pretty cool. U-turn is also pretty common with this. It gives access to Zen Headbutt, so it can sort of be an answer to fire types. Has not the best defensive, so it's not something. Did I say fire types? I meant fighting types. I don't know if I said what I said, but it gets access to Roar, which is pretty good. So it forces the ally to switch. So if I can predict a water type switching in, I can just click Roar, and that'd be pretty good for us. And even then, you know, it's really good in my opinion. I'm really excited to use it, and I think I could run. I'm one to pretty much like unusual sets in my opinion. Like, well, not completely unusual, but you know, something you wouldn't expect to see on a specific mon. So I think Roar could definitely be useful in some situations. I could run like I said, bulk up with Body Press, Flare Blitz, and maybe Toxic / Will-O-Wisp because it also gets Will-O-Wisp. Probably Toxic though because I like Toxic just a bit more. So that's something I could definitely see myself doing. I don't think it gets access to screens. No, it does not. Not from what I see. If I'm really feeling myself, I could do a Rest Sleep Tog set. If I'm really feeling it, and if I'm extra feeling it, I could do a mixed set with Zen mode. A mixed set running like Flamethrower / Psychic probably, and then you know Flare Blitz and Earthquake or Hammer Arm or something, and maybe like a defense decreasing nature. That way I don't minus my special attack, and I can still click buttons with that. You know, still pretty prominent in my opinion. Definitely something that could definitely be worth a shot in my opinion. But other than that, Darmanitan's pretty basic when it comes to its set. Like I said, good Choice Scarf and Band user, good Life Orb user. But that's about it. Okay, so moving on. We have the first mon that I ever drafted in draft format. We have Bisharp. Amazing ability with Defiant, pretty good ability with Pressure, and then Inner Focus not as good, but Immune to Intimidate can be really good, honestly, when you think about it. It really depends if they have something like Gyarados or Arcanine or Quillfish. You know, being immune to Intimidate could definitely be really helpful. But obviously, if you're running an ability, it's probably Defiant. Because Intimidate, I think, only lowers my attack by 1, and this will boost it by 2. So I'm gonna be +1 no matter what, because you know cancels out the -1 and I'm gonna be +1. So definitely running Defiant is actually just a bit better than Inner Focus. And so yeah, like I said, this is a mon that I first drafted ever in any type of draft league, and I'm really excited that it's here. I named it Crusade back then. It's gonna be called Crusade again. And yeah, I'm really excited. It gets access to Stealth Rock, so it's a pretty good Stealth Rock user in my opinion. Obviously, it's not something that needs to be ran, but it's possible. It gets access, you know, pretty basic stuff with like Iron Head, Knockoff, Sucker Punch. Gets access to Poison Jab, so it can be an answer to Grass type mons. But if like Darmanitan dies or something, pretty good Life Orb user in my opinion. It can be a pretty good Assault Vest user as well. Base 70 speed, so it could also possibly be a good Choice Scarf user. Could be a pretty good Band user in my opinion as well. I could also see myself maybe running Rocky Helmet if I'm really feeling it. Gets access to Psycho Cut, so for the fighting types I want to try to come in on it, I can click Psycho Cut, and it's over for them. And Bisharp, with Bisharp, what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought again. I'm so sorry. Um, I think leftovers is good on any mon really. Leftovers can always be a good thing. I can run. I think this gets access to Thunderwave. Yeah, Thunderwave. So if I'm really feeling myself, can run some Thunderwave shenanigans. Gets access to X Scissor, which is pretty cool and toxic. But other than that, it has some pretty basic stats with like Swords Dance, Iron Head knockoff, and Sucker Punch and things like that. But depending on the matchup, obviously that stuff's gonna vary because I could need more of a especially defensive Bisharp in order to take on some fairy types possibly. And that's one thing I love about this. One, it starts my steel type, Fairy Steel Dragon Core, but it also gives me a really good, because it's one of those dark types that doesn't care for fairy types because it's part steel. So it's taking neutral hit from Moonblast. Obviously, it's not going to want to take a Moonblast, but it can in some scenarios, depending on the mon. So I'm really excited to use it. I think it's really, really good in my opinion because of that. And obviously, fairy type mons are going to want to switch in on an Iron Head, especially for the slower ones like Aromatisse and things like that, which I believe might have gotten drafted, but who knows? I don't really know for sure. Nobody's going to want to take an Iron Head from Bisharp because it's stab and it's doing a lot of damage, especially if it's a Life Orb / band set. Everything's just, it clicks buttons in this. And I'm really excited that I picked it up. Like I said, one of the first mons I ever drafted. Well, the first mon I've ever drafted in draft format, and I'm really glad that it's back. So, speaking of mons that I've drafted, I've drafted Noivern before. It's a really good Pokemon in my opinion. Pretty fast Pokemon, with a base 123 speed stat. It can be. I know there's a Rocky Helmet set that's pretty usable in my opinion. Gets access to the ability Frisk, which is amazing. It also gets access to Infiltrator, both amazing abilities. Gets access to Telepathy too, which is not good for because singles, so it's not really good in this scenario. But Infiltrator and Frisk can definitely be good. If I know that there is something that can definitely do sub setup, I can run Infiltrator and try to click it depending on what type of mon it is. But other than that, some basic stuff is it gets Flamethrower. It gets a really good amount of moves. Gets Flamethrower, gets Heat Wave. It can set Tailwind, U-turn, Wild Charge. I need U-turn's pretty usable because you always want pivot, and for a fast mon, it's always good to have that fast pivot sometimes. It can click Air Slash, obviously, Hurricane and things like that. Another Defogger, which is pretty good, and it also gets access to Dark Pulse. So it gets a pretty good assortment of moves. It can drop Dracos and things like that. And yeah, obviously it depends on the scenario. I think for me, Hurricane could be better in some scenarios, but also Air Slash can be really good in others. I know Super Fang is something that I'm very fond of. Being able to cut down something's health on the switch, that's always really nice. It gets access to Psychic too, so that's also pretty good. It can also be a pretty good check to fighting types in my opinion. I obviously don't need Psychic for that, but it's a possibility. It gets access to things like Focus Blast, which is pretty good, and Iron Tail. Obviously, it doesn't have the best attacking stat, and I probably will never run a physical Noivern. So, yeah, but that's basically, Draco Meteor, defogging, pretty reliable hazard removal. I know that in the DTC, Weedy was at the top of not at the top, like the very top of the league, but definitely up there, and lost to a bulky Noivern. So bulky Noivern can definitely be something I can run. And Weedy, if you're watching this, I apologize for bringing it up. But it can roost damage away, which is also really nice. Being able to have recovery is just nice on any type of mon. And so that's basically it with Noivern. That's it. So moving on, we have Snorlax. Again, a mon from my first ever draft team. It was actually my captain because you had to have a Dynamax captain. There was only Dynamax. There wasn't Gigantamax. And Snorlax was my Dynamax captain. Amazing mon in my opinion. Very thick, very fat, can eat so many hits. With thick fat, it's taking those ice types hits, it's taking those fire types hits. amazing HP stat. It has an amazing HP stat, amazing, well, I wouldn't say amazing, but really good special defense stat. Not the best defense stat, which is where it kind of falls because it's weak to fighting types, and most fighting types are physical attackers. But, that HP stat will definitely allow it to take a couple of hits. So I can run both a defensive, I was going to say Noivern, a defensive Snorlax, along with a physical Snorlax. It gets a really wide variety of moves, and that's what I really love about Snorlax is its move pool. It gets such a good variety. I know Resto Chesto set is also something I can really do. It's very, I wouldn't say common, but it's very prominent. A Rest Sleep Talk set is also very prominent. Leftovers is such a good item to run on this thing, along with things like maybe a Citrus Berry, maybe a Band could definitely be useful for this. It gets access to the elemental punches with Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Thunder Punch. It gets high horsepower. Obviously, it gets Earthquake too, so you're going to be winning Earthquake over high horsepower any day. It gets status with Toxic. It can yawn something, so if I'm really feeling it, I can run yawn, and that'd be pretty decent to do. And then it gets access to Outrage, so it can hit dragon types. Basically, this mon can just eat hits while also dishing them out because it has a base 110 attack stat. So it's going to be clicking some buttons here and there. And this is definitely a mon that should not be underestimated. Really, really solid mon in my opinion. And I'm really glad that it's back on my team. So, next up we have Gardevoir, back from the DTC. Spectra, that's her name. That's what she's going to be named. Really good mon. I think I wasn't able to utilize it as well as I wanted to in the DTC, but then again, a lot of my matchups didn't call for it. So with this, I've completed my Fairy Dragon Steel Core with Noivern, Bisharp, and Gardevoir. Obviously, Gardevoir can be a really good choice specs user. If you remember DTC week 4, took out a Metagross that was really, really scary against my team, in my opinion. Because it could just switch in and take hits. So I was able to take that out with a Choice Specs Gardevoir. Choice Scarf is a really good thing to run. It's a very good Choice Scarf user. It can run Trick Room, I believe. Yes, it gets access to Trick Room, and like I said, my mons are a bit on the slower side. So Trick Room can be something that could definitely come. Draining Kiss, obviously, for recover. Actually, no, it does not get Draining Kiss. Never mind. But it can also set up with Calm Mind. It gets access to Energy Ball and things like that. Hyper Voice possibly could be something. Obviously, Mystical Fire, a beautiful thing because of the steel types that are going to want to try to hit this. So Mystical Fire is definitely something that could see myself running often. Gets access to Shadow Ball and Thunderbolt. Gets access to Thunder Wave, Toxic, and Trick. Obviously, if I can trick a Choice Specs onto a physical attacker, that'd just be beautiful. Especially if it's one that wants to set up, like what I said. Actually, I don't know if I did say this with Rotom. If something wants to set up and I can just trick them, something that will lock them into a move like a Choice Scarf, that'd be beautiful. Or for Gardevoir, in his case, a Choice Specs. Beautiful, beautiful in my opinion. I'd love to do that. Because then it stops them from setting up. And if it's a physical attacker being given a Choice Specs, its item is useless. Its item is useless, and it's limiting how much they can do. Because they can only click one move and be choice locked, And that's what I really love about it. So I'm glad that I was actually able to pick this up. I'm glad that she's back, and I think I'd be able to utilize her better here. It can be also a screen setter. I know I have a couple of screen setters here, but it can set screens. That's also something that maybe possibly I could do. And yeah, that's basically it for Gardevoir. I'm glad that it's back from the DTC, and I'm really excited to use it. Alright, next up, we have Runerigus. Runerigus gets me access to Stealth Rocks and T-Spikes. You're gonna notice that my main hazard here are T-Spikes. I'm just gonna say it now. Or not T-Spikes, Stealth Rocks. That's because personally I like to get up my hazards and be done with it. Just get up one layer. So I'm not much of a spiker. I'm not much of a T-Spiker. But if I can get up Stealth Rocks, that's obviously just in the best case scenario for me. Trick Room setter and can utilize its own Trick Room. Really, really, really nice. And it gets access to the new Poltergeist. it's Lord and Savior for Runerigus right here, because Poltergeist is, let me check. Poltergeist is a base 110 ghost type physical move with 90% accuracy. Obviously, it fails if the target doesn't have an item, so knockoff is going to be something that I need to remember what has an item and what doesn't. And you will probably see me, you won't see me doing it, but you'll probably hear me writing down a couple of things, because I can't remember things very well. And since I don't have access, it's not like Showdown, I can't like hover over something and see its moveset and see if I've knocked off its item or something. I'm going to need to be able to remember that. So I think with Poltergeist, it becomes much more of a, it can be much more of an offensive mon. Clicking Earthquake, clicking Rock Slide, clicking Poltergeist, and then whatever move I see fit. Obviously, Rock Slide isn't always going to be coming, because it might not call for it. But I can run an Iron Defense Body Press set if I'm really feeling it, because its defensives are really good. Has base 145 defense and base 105 special defense. So really good defensive, and base 50 HP stat, or base 58 HP stat, and then attack is at 95. And then we don't talk about speed and special attack, which is why it's really good in Trick Room, because it's such a slow Pokemon. A lot of my ones are really slow, so Trick Room could definitely benefit my team. Obviously, I can see them having so, well, not everything can have a counter for Trick Room. Not every mon can have a counter for Trick Room, but it could make things. It could definitely turn the tables a little bit, in my opinion, if I have Trick Room on my side. People are definitely going to be expecting T-Spikes to come on this thing. But if I can get them up, that's perfect for me. Stealth Rocks T-Spikes. It can be pretty, like I said, pretty reliable hazard setter. And then, Poltergeist, Earthquake, and things like that, depending. Iron Defense, Body Press. Because if I can get to +6 and then click Body Press, I'm just obliterating anything other than Ghost type Pokemon. And maybe like a really bulky Psychic type Pokemon. But that's basically it. So, moving on, we have Machamp. Machamp is a pretty decent mon. Good status absorber with ability Guts. Flame Orb Guts is obviously something I can run. But even if I don't decide to run Flame Orb, and maybe like something like an Assault Vest could definitely be slapped onto Machamp here, I can still take Will-O-Wisp or Toxic, and then hey, you did me a favor and you boosted my attack. Life Orb I think could be pretty decent. Things like Drain Punch I think would really benefit this mon. Drain Punch, close combat, maybe bulk up here and there. Gets access to Poison Jab, so it gets coverage for those fairy types. Gets access to Knockoff, which is really good. Gets coverage for those Psychic types. And for flying types, obviously it gets Thunder Punch. But not only can it absorb status, it can dish out status. Obviously, having the chances with those moves that I just named, like Thunder Punch and Poison Jab, has the chance to poison/paralyze, but it also gets Toxic. So that's not always a guarantee, because it can miss if it's not a poison type, which Machamp is not. And in my personal opinion, it's not completely I like it, but it's budget conk. Not really, but in a way. And I want to see, does it get Mach Punch? Huh, I don't see. Okay, no, it doesn't get access to Mach Punch. So it doesn't get priority, which is very unfortunate, because I do like my priority when it comes to that. Mach Punch is just a really good priority move in my opinion. So it's pretty unfortunate that doesn't get it, but we'll make do with what we have. And there's not really much to say when it comes to Machamp. Like I said, good status absorber. Can honestly just sort of click buttons sometimes. It really depends on what the matchup is. I don't see myself bringing this pretty often, but I could always be wrong. Like I said, it really just depends on the matchup. Alright, so moving on, we have Unfezant. I know I did it dirty back in the DTC because I dropped it and never brought it to a match, but I trust me when I say that this will be brought. I plan on bringing it, not every week, obviously, but here and there if it calls for it and I need a defogger or or something like that, Unfezant's here. Unfezant can defog. I know it's a pretty reliable Tailwind setter as well, and Tailwind is always really good. Heavy Duty Boots is something that it can utilize fairly well as well. It gets access to taunt, gets access to U-turn. It can wish, so if I'm really feeling it, I can wish pass. So things like defog, tailwind, wish, with maybe U-turn or Brave Bird, probably Brave Bird, could definitely be utilized. There's not much really to say about Unfezant, but yeah, it gives me, because you probably see that I have the smallest weakness when it comes to what's the word? When it comes to ghost types, Necrozma doesn't like ghost type hits. Gardevoir doesn't like ghost type hit, and Runerigus doesn't like ghost type hits. Bisharp can take them for sure. Snorlax is immune to them, and Unfezant gives me another immunity. It gets access to the Night Slash, so that's really really good. If I can get status, I can run Facade. So if I see a pretty prominent status user, I can run Facade and completely throw them off guard. It gets access to quick attack, so it gets priority. If a mon's low enough, click quick attack, claim the kill, claim a life with Unfezant. I don't plan to take as many, to pick up kills with Unfezant if I can. Perfect, beautiful. Just because Unfezant's more of like I guess on the supportive side. It's more of a hazard removal person, a hazard removal user. Great defog user, just clicks defog most of the time. It can also set Tailwind, like I said, and as you know, my Mons would definitely benefit from a Tailwind. For those who can outspeed something with double stat, like unlike Runerigus, who won't outspeed anything really with a boosted, like doubled stat, because Runerigus's speed is not great. Unless I need to outspeed something specifically, there's never going to be a moment where I decide, let's run max speed Runerigus. But I think Snorlax could definitely benefit from a Tailwind. Like I said, my team all around benefits from Trick Room. Not all around, but it can definitely benefit with some mods, especially Snorlax. If I can get a Trick Room and then put Snorlax on the field, that'd just be beautiful. Or even a Runerigus, beautiful, beautiful stuff. And I'm really excited to just get this league going. And I think I covered Unfezant pretty well. It can, I guess, it's mostly a physical attacker. It has pretty decent speed tier with base 93 speed, and then pretty good HP with base 80 speed. That's pretty good for HP stats. That's basically it. Like I said, defog, tailwind, pretty basic stuff with Unfezant. And I'm sorry that to DTC Unfezant, I plan to utilize it here. So we got 2 mons from the DTC on my team, so that's pretty cool. Alright, so now my F tier, I picked up Ivysaur. I needed a grass type. And I realized that I didn't have one, and Ivysaur was in the F tier. And this thing, honestly, I thought it was pretty good. Has pretty good stats all around, base 60. All around, not 60 flat, but in the 60s. Besides special attack and special defense, that's base 80. But it can, it can Giga Drain, it can set Leech Seed, it can Poison Powder, it can do things like that. It's not here to be offensive. It's more here to just maybe take a couple of hits, set up a Leech Seed, set up a poison, get a poison, or toxic off, technically toxic. Sleep Claws, I'm fairly sure, is definitely going to be a thing. So Sleep Powder can be something I run, but obviously it's not going to be something I always bring, because Sleep Claws, and I'm never going to keep track and things like that. Toxic, like I said, will never miss if it's a poison type, which Ivysaur is, thankfully. And it can click Giga Drain, get that recovery back. So I can see myself running like a Giga Drain, Leech Seed, Toxic, and then maybe Sleep Powder. I can see myself running that set. Maybe Energy Ball if I really want to be a more offensive. It can set screens. I have a couple of screen setters on my team. But I think it really benefits from Eviolite in my opinion. And it can just be pure support. And that's going to be it, honestly. That's it for my team. Because there's not much else to say when it comes to Ivysaur. And so yeah, I hope you enjoyed this team. I really can't wait to use this, and I'm really excited to get this league started. We finished the draft a couple days ago. We're week 0. which is like the week you can make trades and stuff, and it's like pretty just like week to get everything ready. The schedule's not out yet, so I don't know who I'm facing, but and I don't even know if I'm gonna do team builders. I probably eventually, if I'm really feeling it, I will. Um, but if not, don't hate me for it. Anyways, I'm gonna let you guys go. I hope you enjoyed the team builder, and I hope you look forward to this league as much as I am. Remember, I'm Coach Scythe, your coach for the Atlanta Braviaries, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.